I'm Liz Faublas, and this is Currents. Another dramatic decision tonight by Pope Francis as he is determined to demonstrate to the world Christ's love for the least of our brothers. The Holy Father will celebrate Holy Thursday Mass in prison. The Vatican announcing that Francis will wash feet as part of the Mass of the Lord's Last Supper inside a jail for youth located in Rome. The Holy Father's homily at Tuesday's inaugural Mass hinted at this sort of dramatic symbol as he emphasized the Church's role as protector of all of God's people.
The hungry, the thirsty, the stranger, the naked, the sick, those in prison. Only those who serve with love are able to protect.
Now the Pope put the burden on his own shoulders, saying protection with love and tenderness is a service that the Bishop of Rome is called to carry out.
Deve essere molto stanco.
Non credo, oggi ancora no.
Ancora no.
Those words from Patriarch Bartholomew I, the leader of the world's Orthodox Christians. He is inviting the Pope to meet him in Jerusalem later this year so that the two may continue their work healing the split that ruptured the Church, east from west, nearly 1,000 years ago. Bartholomew's participation at the Pope's inaugural Mass was the first by an Orthodox leader since that break. Pope Francis now is being formally invited by the President of Brazil to come to the country for World Youth Day. President Dilma Rousseff extended the invitation during her meeting with the Holy Father, his second with a head of state. After greeting one another, the President and the Pope posed for photographers.
Sempre las fotos.
Eu me pergunto onde ellos los coloco. E eu espero o Senhor na Jornada Mundial da Juventude.
Y acuérdese, fuerte y con ternura.
The bishops of Brazil are confirming tonight that Pope Francis intends to attend World Youth Day in Rio starting July 23rd. 4 million young people are expected to be there. Papal scholar and expert George Weigel first met Pope Francis, then Cardinal Jorge Bergoglio, last May. Author of the highly praised biography of Pope John Paul II, Weigel is deeply impressed by Francis. He finds him to be a man of God, a man of profound humility, and a man of keen intelligence. The Pope is a man, Weigel says, who intends to go on an evangelical offense. It will be all gospel all the time. And the corruption and bureaucracy now crippling the Vatican will be fixed, Weigel adds, because Francis knows they are impediments to his gospel-centered mission. New York's Cardinal Timothy Dolan shares the view that Vatican reform is necessary to get the word out about the new evangelization. And he sees as the best approach, stop leaking and start talking to the news media. Cardinal Dolan is returning from Rome while his brother bishops of New York are returning from Albany. They went to the state capitol under the leadership of Brooklyn's Bishop Nicholas DiMarzio to meet with Governor Andrew Cuomo. The bishops were accompanied by Catholics from across our diocese, students and adults alike. The journey made so the politicians would know what's important to our people and our church. And with them all, our Antonina Zelinska reporting on the Catholics coming to the Capitol.
In order to fully participate in the democratic process, Catholics from throughout the state of New York gathered in Albany for a Catholic lobbying day.
We go into the public arena, so to speak. We express our opinions and our faith in a very practical way, and we explain to all our elected officials. We tell them who we are and what we believe in and the morality of our Catholicism.
It doesn't necessarily matter as much to a politician how a bishop feels or how a particular lobbyist might feel. If they think that there are votes behind those positions, their own people, they're much more likely to support or oppose the thing that you're there to talk about. It's really just a show of force of the Catholic community.
As a way of encouraging Catholics to participate in the lobby day, New York Catholic bishops held a press conference right after meeting with top officials in Albany, including Governor Andrew Cuomo.
The more people are informed, the more they can weigh in with their legislators and understand the issues. That's really information, and signing up for our legislative network is really important.
It feels great to be here with fellow Catholics, just unite and share the issues that we have and know that we do stand strongly on certain issues, and just to be able to share our opinions and how we feel about things, and basically to make sure that we're being heard.
What's on my mind today is, first of all, the governor's planned expansion of abortion rights within the state. We're concerned, of course, with Catholic schools and the funding of Catholic schools, Medicare, anything to do with health. And we're concerned about people who are imprisoned It's up to us to speak to that issue.
For the legislators, very, very important to hear different opinions. When you hear so many different opinions, you have to find a compromise among all those opinions. Then you can say that you are representing all of those people.
And we need to know that we're not a voice crying out in the wilderness, but we're really millions of voices expressing our faith in a very practical way.
In order to make the most of their lobby day, participating Catholics did not forget the power of prayer.
We can't combat evil without the help of God, and that's what prayer is about, asking God's intervention in our world to make things better. So we need to pray to ask the Lord's intervention. We cannot do it by ourselves.
Prayer is ultimately the best tool that we have in trying to advance things, to bring about the changes that are necessary to help us on earth and then ultimately to get to his kingdom.
We are the future. I'm a senior in high school, and if I didn't come here today and everybody else did, what's my say, for the future? I'm protecting myself too as well as everybody else.
Having set their petitions before their legislators and before God, Catholics from the Diocese of Brooklyn return home to continue their work. From Albany, this is Antonina Jelinska with Currents.
The governor now admits it was a mistake to rush and pass another gun control law right after last year's Connecticut school massacre. Cuomo wanted to boast that he and the state were first following the tragedy, and they passed a measure within days of the killings. Now Cuomo says the law is unworkable and he'll try to fix it. America's bishops say the attack on religious liberty is unprecedented. We'll have the details as Currents continues after the break. Welcome back. The bishops of the United States are giving their official response to the Obamacare law that forces people to violate their religious beliefs. Calling it unjust and unlawful, the bishops complain that the government alone determines who's religious enough to avoid Obamacare and its demands to provide and pay for abortions and contraceptives. And they describe it as a, quote, unprecedented violation of religious liberty by the federal government. Still, the bishops are telling the Obama administration they're willing to work with them to reach a resolution of the dispute. Meantime, President Obama today met with Palestinian leader Mahmoud Abbas. The two sat down in Ramallah on the West Bank. Mr. Obama is trying to restart Israeli-Palestinian peace talks. This is his first visit to Israel as president. And after seeing Abbas, the president traveled to Jerusalem for a speech to Israeli university students urging compromise as a way to secure peace. One listener did not agree.
I believe your future is bound to ours. I have to say we actually arranged for that because it made me feel at home. I wouldn't feel comfortable if I didn't have at least one heckler.
And during that speech, the president repeated his opposition to Israeli settlements, a position that has strained relations with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Meantime, Palestinian students in Gaza, high school students, are preparing for war. And as we learn in this report, they believe the next one is only a matter of time.
This is Gaza's next generation of potential fighters and leaders. Military training for boys, the latest weekly class on offer in high schools, courtesy of Hamas's education ministry. At this one, the principal says every student has joined.
We learn about strength and jihad, God willing.
16-year-old Yasser Abu Jasser and his classmate Bilal Furwana say they don't know if they'll join one of Gaza's many militant groups, but there's no doubt this is fertile recruiting ground. One of the things these high school students don't need to be taught is what it feels like to be in war. They have all experienced it, and they all believe that the fight between Gaza and Israel will never end.
For example, me personally, I have lost 3 people dear to me in the war. Therefore, the seed of martyrdom grew in us for the next round.
The trainers themselves are military men.
The goal is to teach them to get accustomed to manhood. Why are you singling us out here in Gaza? Even other countries like China and Western countries even have similar programs.
Including the United States. High schools there have a military program called Junior ROTC. Why should Gaza be any different, he says? Except Gaza is different. The U.S. and several other countries have deemed Hamas, which runs the Strip, and other militant groups here terrorist organizations. The fighters say the U.S. has a biased view. The militants see themselves as oppressed freedom fighters struggling to get their land back from Israel. Islamic Jihad has invited us actually to come and see them train, but it is not an easy road. This is how they all got up with all the weapons. And they've also asked me to cover my head because seeing my hair is offensive to them. Once at the top, we get an exclusive look into the world of Gaza militants. They train here with Israel in plain view because they too have no doubt another war is inevitable. Their leaders and the Hamas government say the United States leadership can't make peace because it sees things one way, Israel's way.
The Palestinian people consider the U.S. government and not the American people partners in our suffering. If you want to change this perception, you should be fair and just, and not look at our suffering from an Israeli perspective.
As President Obama and Secretary of State Kerry look to revive the peace process, they will not be making a stop in Gaza. But this is another piece of the peace process puzzle that so far no one has solved. There is little chance for lasting peace if Gaza's future generations can't imagine a world without war. Sarah Seidner, CNN, Gaza City.
The war in Syria, a civil war now 2 years old, is driving more and more refugees to flee for their lives. In Turkey, Catholic churches and monasteries are now sheltering Syrian Christians. They've turned to the church, afraid of the Muslim extremism found in official relief camps. And the patriarch of the Melkite Catholic Church is appealing to Pope Francis, writing that all Christians in the Middle East and especially in Syria are under threat. The patriarch is praying for the Pope's assistance. The Holy Father is an expert on the Middle East, and when he was Archbishop of Buenos Aires, Francis was responsible for the Catholic community in the Middle East. Up next, Pope polls and Pope names, separate stories as Currents continues. American Catholics love the Pope and are optimistic about the future. Two new polls by Fox News and Pew Research report that huge numbers of Catholics are expressing happiness with the Holy Father. Almost 90% of those attending weekly Mass are telling that to Pew, 80% to Fox. And 3 out of every 4 people are saying that Pope Francis makes them feel better about the future of the Catholic Church. The Holy Father reached into the great history of the Church to select his name, just as did his predecessor Benedict. Now a church expert, the Rome Bureau Chief of Catholic News, explains how the names provide inspiration to the pontiffs.
The last 2 popes have chosen names that recall those of the founders of 2 of the Church's great religious families, the Benedictines and the Franciscans. We know the retired pope is devoted to St. Benedict's monastic ideal of ora et labora, pray and labor, which was the inspiration for Pope Benedict's idea of creative minorities, groups that could preserve and defend the faith through the new dark ages of secularism. Now Pope Francis has identified himself as a disciple of St. Francis of Assisi, who enjoined his friars to take the monastic vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience. But instead of keeping them inside the cloister, Francis sent his friars out into the world, particularly the growing cities of 13th century Europe. Probably the single most striking difference between the traditions is the radical corporate poverty that St. Francis required. Unlike the monks, the friars had no guarantee from one day to the next that they would have a meal or a place to stay. As G.K. Chesterton pointed out in his book about St. Francis almost a century ago, this allowed the Franciscans to expand very quickly because they had no overhead expenses. But it also meant that they were radically dependent on the people that they were ministering to. So in effect, they drew out the charity of everybody else through their own poverty. So these are 2 different charisms that ultimately serve the same end. And as a reminder that they drew from the same source, you can visit the Benedictine monastery at Subiaco, about an hour's drive east of Rome, where you can see the cave where the young Benedict of Nursia spent 3 years discovering his vocation. And a few steps away, you can see a beautiful fresco of St. Francis of Assisi, painted from life, when he came there as a pilgrim 7 centuries later in search of inspiration for his own mission.
Now in the 21st century, the Holy Father has 4 million Twitter followers already. His elevation to the pontificate was the second biggest Twitter event of all time, behind President Obama's re-election. Pope Francis is getting help developing his social media skills from 2 Villanova University undergraduates. Well, help for students in our diocese is coming from Angels in Brooklyn and Queens, who are providing the funds that help build futures in education. Now we learn more about the story from Johanna Bada, the newest member of our team.
Every year, the Futures in Education Be an Angel to a Student program offers a chance for Angel sponsors to get to know their students, some for the very first time. This year, Citi Field is a home to that event.
It's amazing for a lot of these kids to think that someone sort of comes out of nowhere and really has that connection with them. I mean, if you look around here today, there is a real connection between the Angels and their students, and it makes these children feel special.
Nearly 60% of New York City's children reside in Brooklyn and Queens. 21% of them live in poverty. Futures in Education is here to make sure that an excellent Catholic education continues to be a viable option for future generations. Today, we get to meet some of the angels that help make this happen.
John Loconsolo is the founder of the Be an Angel to a Student program.
I started when a priest friend of mine became pastor of a parish in Long Island City, and I went to visit him. And then I said to him, "Is there anything I can do, Father?" And he said, "You know, I have 2 little girls who are probably going to have to leave school because they can't come up with all the tuition." So I said, "How much are they short?" And he told me, and I said, "I'll send you a check."
Today, the Be an Angel to a Student program has over 300 angels. And in the 2012-2013 school calendar year, they have given close to $1 million.
That's a lot of money. So, and that's all contributions from people. It's about $1,500 to sponsor a child and be an angel. So, I mean, it makes a big dent into the overall $8 million that we give out.
$8,200,000 to be exact is the amount Futures in Education raised last year alone to help with the Catholic education of over 6,000 students in Brooklyn and Queens.
This is the first year we stabilized enrollment. And the reason we stabilized enrollment really is because of the Futures in Education, the Angel program. It's keeping children in our seats. And I think it's important that we continue to keep children in the seats, as Bishop said, because these are our children, are our future.
It has an impact because the children write to their sponsors and they get encouragement back from them. So they know that there's a reason why they're in school. Their parents, obviously have to help them too, but when they know somebody else is interested in them, that's a great encouragement to keep doing well in school.
Brianna, an 8th grader from Blessed Sacrament in Brooklyn, has been with her angel for 3 years.
I feel grateful that I was chosen to be a part of this program because I know kids who would like a Catholic education but wouldn't be able to afford it.
What do you think would have happened if, for example, Futures in Education or the Be an Angel to a Student program didn't exist? What do you think would happen to a lot of kids that were in your situation?
They would probably have to go to public school and not be able to go to Catholic school and have a Catholic education.
Do you like Catholic school?
Yes, I do a lot.
Why do you like it?
I don't know, I feel like comfortable in my environment and the teachers are there to help you and the students are really friendly and if you have a problem, they help you too.
School is very hard to pay for nowadays and it's just hard for a lot of people and I'm one of the lucky few that gets help. I would like to say thank you very much for being my angel. You've made an impact on my life and I just really want to thank you for that.
And up next, the Pope and his dentist, as Currents continues. Time now for our weekly feature, School of the Week. Tonight we travel to Jackson Heights, Queens, where the students at St. Joan of Arc School appreciate the importance of prayer in their daily lives.
Good afternoon, fellow St. Joan of Arc students. Before we head out to lunch, let us pray the guardian angel. Angel of God, my guardian dear, to whom God's love commits me here.
At St. Joan of Arc School, we have a strong Catholic identity. Prayer is woven throughout the day. The children are challenged here. They work above their grade level, and one of the very proud aspects of the school is that we are a National Blue Ribbon School of Excellence. the teachers make all this happen.
I'm always looking 3 years, 4 years down the line with my students. Are they, in fact, going to achieve in high school and college and a career? And to have the honor to be here for 28 years and to see the number of students who come back and say thank you. It's just a very special place. It's a place where, in fact, there is the tradition, yet there is what's modern and a genuine, caring family community.
I teach first grade in St. John's in the same room where I was a first grader many, many years ago. One of the wonderful things about being here so long, almost 30 years, is that some of the children that I've taught over the past few years are the children of students that I taught 20 and 30 years ago. And they've heard about me long before they ever met me from their parents. And it's a great joy to see their parents. And it's a great reward to know that parents now want the same gift that they had as a child to be passed on to their children. My children need to explore and to develop as inquisitive students, but they also need to develop as children of God and people who believe in their faith.
I came to United States about 20 years ago. I missed my country. I come from Poland, and I was homesick. And for a very long time, I felt I did not belong. And it's really true that when I had my children and they came to the school, I found my family. Kids are so smart during the lessons when we talk about things that make them happy. They say, God is making us happy and God made this. So it's really, especially with this age, you know, I teach pre-K 3. They are so young and so pure and so innocent that you know that the answers come from their heart. And when they connect it to God, you know you're doing the right job.
My prayer is that we continue to grow. We have been growing tremendously in the right places, especially in the little grades. We're now talking about even beginning a program for 2-year-olds. And this came from parents who just want their children in St. Joan of Arc somehow.
Can you hold something in your hair? Ooh.
And finally tonight, Pope Francis has been very busy during the first few days of his pontificate, but as we learn now, not all his chores or telephone calls have been church-related.
One of the first phone calls Pope Francis made after being elected was to his sister in Argentina. He called to say he was okay, but he had another message as well. He said he wouldn't be calling the rest of the family so that the Vatican wouldn't get a high phone bill. The following days, other phone calls followed.
The other day, he called the Archdiocese of Buenos Aires to check in before celebrating Mass in St. Peter's Square. When a nun answered the phone, she asked, "Who is calling?" And he said, "Father Jorge." The nun said, "Your Holiness?" He said, "Oh, come on, it's Father Jorge," kind of referencing that it was not a time for official titles.
Since being elected, Pope Francis also called his dentist to cancel his appointments. He then called the newsstand where he usually buys the newspaper to say he wouldn't be stopping by anytime soon to buy the paper.
He called the newsstand to tell the owner that he wouldn't be buying newspapers there anymore. He then called the dentist to say he couldn't make it to his appointment. It's his way of showing respect. It's obvious that he wouldn't be stopping by, but he wants to personally let these people know.
Only a few days have passed since being elected as the leader of the Catholic Church, but in this short amount of time, he's made it a point to focus his pontificate on humbleness and simplicity.
What an amazing man. Thank you for joining us tonight. We leave you with more of those terrific children and teachers at St. Joan of Arc School. For all of us here at Currents, I'm Liz Faublas. Have a good night.